everyone here today business or share the secrets of building a multi-million dollar business. Instead, I'm here to share a story with you. Today,
Hi, Tina.
you, you all have become my best friends.
Hello, Tina.
At times, and have never occurred because we are in such disbelief. And I'm sure that 100% of you people here in this audience is keeping silent because of fear, shame, culture, and beliefs. We have stood in this position far too long, burdened by the fear and the weight of tradition that instilled doubt in our hearts. Are you familiar with the saying, the truth has set you free? That saying resonates deeply within me because after many years of silence, I finally found my voice because I told the truth and it set me free. I'm eager to share my story with you now. So let's start at the beginning. A long time ago, I vividly remember a day I was 3 years old. Back in 1959, my mother and I were flying on a plane from Italy to Canada. I was sitting in the window seat and I was looking out the window and I saw the fluffy clouds drifting below us. One cloud in particular captured my eyes. It looked like the design of an old man's face with eyes and a nose and a mouth, with wild long hair and a long flowing beard. So high up in the sky, I recalled my mother telling me that God lived in heaven. And in my innocent little mind, I imagined and believed that this cloud was the face of God Himself. From that day forward, I always imagined God looking like that. And whenever I looked up at the sky, I would look to see if I can find, and I never saw it again, but I never stopped looking. Even at the age of 3, I was incredibly close with my mother. She was my best friend. Whenever I would ask her a question, she would look deep into my eyes and give me an answer, whether it was true or not. I believed every word she said. Only later in life, I came to understand that many of her answers were stories that she had created beautifully comforting tales to fill the emptiness left by her own childhood. Finally, we immigrated to Canada, where my father had already settled and was building a future for our family. As newcomers in a strange country, we lived in a house shared with 5 other families, my father's brothers, their wives, and their children. It was crowded, chaotic life, and one of the main reasons my parents worked day and night tirelessly just to cover expenses, survive, and save for a place of their own. 2 years later, so proudly to say, their hard work paid off. They purchased a house, fulfilling their dreams. At the age of 5, I began kindergarten, a chapter that filled me with fear. Not knowing a word of English made the experience even tougher. On top of that, I was bullied by my classmates who cruelly called me chocolate face because of the color of my skin. Their words cut deeply and made the idea of going to school terrifying. Yet, I had no choice but to press on. Slowly, I learned the English language and began to find my voice. With each new word, I uncovered a strength I didn't know I had, the strength to stand up for myself. I developed ways to protect myself from the bullying, and over time, I transformed that fear into resilience. Even at the age of 5, I was learning how to turn pain into power and struggles into wisdom and stepping stones. Eventually, I started to make friends. Recess became a time of laughter for me, and the sport of new friends helped me rebuild my confidence one moment at a time. As the years passed, I thrived academically, excelled in school, and achieved remarkable success. I still remember the day I was told to receive a special award, one of only 10 students in my class to be honored at a ceremony in school. and parents were invited to attend to witness the celebration. I was overjoyed as soon as I got home. I ran to my parents, eyes sparkling with excitement, and told them, "You have to be there. It will mean the world to me. Mom, Dad, you need to come." They smiled at me and promised, "Of course we'll be there." And I believed them completely. I held on to that promise with wide-eyed trust only a child can give so freely. But when the big day arrived and my name was called, I walked up to the stage with trembling hands and a heart full of joy. I stood there looking around the auditorium, scanning the sea of faces for the two people I wanted to see most. And then I finally realized that the two seats were empty. I imagined how I felt watching other students beam as their parents cheered them on. Once again, I found myself navigating both the highs and the lows of my life all by myself. I blinked away the tears and forced a smile as I accepted my award, my heart quietly breaking beneath the applause. But when I got home that evening, I was furious with my parents. I asked them at dinner table, "Why didn't you come? You promised me. I felt so alone. I wanted you to see me on stage receive my award. Why?" Their response was simple, but it pierced deeper than they could know. They were too afraid to ask for time off. They thought missing work might cost them their job. That is why they didn't show up. They chose their livelihood over my moment. At just 7 years old, I was left with painful realization that their work, their fears, their responsibilities, those came before me. That moment etched itself in my heart, planting a belief that would take years to unlearn, that maybe I wasn't as important as I thought I was or hoped to be. Moving forward, by the age of 10, I had a 5-year-old brother and a newborn sister just 3 months after my mom giving birth, she returned back to work. With my parents both working full time, I had no choice to become the caretaker of my younger siblings. Imagine the weight of the responsibility on such a small little shoulders, following adult instruction, managing two little lives and my own, striving to meet my parents' expectations so they wouldn't be disappointed when they came home, as fear was a constant companion. I made sure the house was clean, the beds were made, and my brother and my sister were safe and fed, all while attending school and trying to learn. During the 1960s, the image of the perfect life was a house with a garage, two kids, and a dog. We had all of that except for the dog. From the outside, it seemed like we were living the dream, but inside, I felt like I was missing out. I carried out adult responsibilities, did chores, went to school, and took care of my siblings. My childhood was slipping away. Though I didn't express it at the time, I harbored deep resentment, anger that I now understand was rooted in my fear of hurting my parents. Even as a child, I knew they were doing their best. That awareness shaped me into a people pleaser, always trying to make others people happy, often using humor and laughter to mask my own pain. Despite the challenges, I was blessed with a God given gift, a beautiful singing voice. Music became my escape, my sanctuary. My mother recognized my passion and often had me sing for family and friends. Her brothers were musicians and played at wedding bands, and I would tag along with them and perform on stage. I loved being in the spotlight, something I rarely experienced at home. On stage, I felt alive. I felt seen. I felt free. I felt heard. When I was 12 years old, an opportunity of a lifetime came my way. A popular Italian television show, Carasello Italiano, was auditioning for children with talent. My mother submitted my name. To my amazement, I was selected to perform on TV. During the show, I met a well-known couple from the Italian community who were so impressed with my voice that they offered to manage my career in New York City. But my parents said no firmly and without discussion. My father believed that for a girl to succeed in show business, She should have to sacrifice her integrity to managers and producers. At 12, I had no voice in the decision. A dream that felt within reach slipped through my fingers, and a piece of me shattered. For a long time, I resented my father for making that choice for me. Later in life, I asked him, "Why did you say no? The opportunity could have changed my life, Daddy." He simply said, "You were too young. A girl's place is always with her family." Growing up, I often felt the heavy burden of being a girl in our culture. Boys had the freedom, girls had rules. They were expected to obey and conform to please. I witnessed this in my own family. My father's favoritism toward my brother was undeniable and painful. I remember one particular moment when I was 13 years old. I longed for a bicycle. And after begging my father, he finally came home with one. My heart raced with excitement until he called my brother over and handed the bike to him. He insisted it was for all of us, but his gesture spoke volumes. I was devastated. Tears welled up in my eyes. "You're too old to be riding a bike, anyways," he said to me so coldly. "Stop crying." My mother, ever intuitive, saw the pain in my eyes. She knew how deeply that moment wounded me. But in the heartbreak, I made a quiet decision. I claimed that bike as mine. I rode it everywhere. With the wind in my face, the joy in my heart, I embraced the rare feeling of freedom. For once, I felt like a child, laughing, pedaling, soaring. The simple act of defiance ignited a flame inside me. I reminded me that I could choose joy even when joy wasn't handed to me. Looking back, it saddens me to think how much I gave up as the firstborn daughter. I was molded into an adult long before my time. I wasn't allowed to dream freely or even enjoy the innocence of riding a bike without earning it or competing for it. Every victory for me felt like a struggle. Every joy felt like a fight. My mother tried to fill my emptiness by sewing me beautiful clothes and choosing the finest outfits for me, knowing how much I cherished fashion and the confidence that it gave me. She could see the sadness in my eyes and understood the hurt I carried within. In time, I came to learn about the struggles she endured as the eldest daughter in her family. Without realizing it, she had passed much of her pain onto me. Like many women of her generations, she had been shaped by culture, beliefs, and traditions that governed her world, and those same beliefs were passed down to me. Life went on. By the age of 13 and 14, I was still the caretaker for my younger siblings whenever our parents were working. But I also stepped into a new role, that of an advocate for my parents. I became their voice, their interpreter, and their guide through a world they didn't yet understand. I translated conversations from Italian to English and back, at doctor's appointments, during meetings with lawyers, when negotiating mortgage deals, and even on an everyday phone calls. I read their emails. I read their, I explained the contents, helping them navigate the complexities of adult life in a new country. At a time when most 13-year-olds were navigating the halls of middle school and learning about themselves, I was shouldering the responsibilities of a grown woman. I had no choice but to mature quickly, confronting the trials, pressures, and stress of adulthood far too soon. By 16, though, everything seemed to change for the better. I loved school. I was an honor student, an athlete full of energy and drive. I had a part-time job, a circle of great friends, and my parents were finally financially stable. We lived in a beautiful neighborhood in a house framed by a white picket fence and blooming roses. We were living the Canadian dream, and I knew just how much my parents sacrificed to get there. We were healthy, happy, and full of hope. I admired my parents deeply because I had witnessed firsthand the hardship they had endured to give us this life. I felt nothing but love and gratitude for them. Everything seemed perfect. But in 1972, when I was just 16, A single moment changed the course of my life forever. One afternoon, while visiting relatives, I met a tall, handsome young man who had just arrived from Italy. His captivating blue eyes immediately drew me in. He was 21 years old, who had recently competed 2 years in the Italian Marines and looked very the gentleman in his crisp white uniform. We struck up a conversation and instantly clicked. We exchanged phone numbers and began talking for hours each day. We even started secretly meeting whenever we could. After 6 months of courting me, he asked my parents for my hand in marriage. My father, strong willed and protective, immediately refused. No way! She's only 16. Are you crazy? He shouted. I was young and hopelessly in love. I challenged my father's decisions like never before. Surprisingly, he gave in, a rare and unexpected reversal, because his no was always no. Only later did I learn the reason behind his change of heart. He was afraid I would run away with this man and bring shame to the family. So he accepted. So we got engaged and began planning a wedding. 2 weeks before the wedding, we had to get married at City Hall. That same day, on the bus ride home, there was a big change in him. He began flirting with other women, laughing, joking, as if I didn't even exist. Of course, jealousy bubbled up inside me, and I gently nudged him with my elbow and I whispered, "Stop it." What happened next shattered me. He turned toward me and without warning slapped me across the face. I was stunned, silent. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I cradled my face in disbelief. He leaned in close, his voice low and threatening. "I'm now your husband. You do what I say, when I say, and how. You keep your mouth shut and don't ever embarrass me again." After we got off the bus, I swung my purse at him and I shouted, "I never want to see you again." Then I ran home as fast as I could. That night, I tearfully told my parents what had happened and that I no longer wanted to marry him. They were devastated. My mother cried as she held me. My father erupted in rage, yelling, "I'm going to kill him. I will spend the rest of my life in jail, but I'm going to kill him." My mother began to panic, pulling out her hair and clutching her chest, claiming she was having a heart attack. "You're legally married now," they both shouted. "The church wedding is in 2 weeks. What are we going to do? The invitations have been sent." This is my favorite one. "What are people going to think?" Both of my parents went into panic mode. No one asked how I felt. No one acknowledged my pain. It was as if my voice had been erased from the conversation. I felt blamed, as if I had ruined everything, when in reality, I was the one who had been hurt. I was the victim, but I had no space to be heard. That same night, he came over to our house in tears. He apologized profusely to both me and my parents. He used his charm, he played the victim well, promising that it would never happen again. I felt overwhelmed and trapped. Just at 16 years old, I was caught between my parents' fears and my own. And just like that, it was swept under the carpet as if nothing ever happened. The church wedding day arrived. As I walked down that aisle, tears welled in my eyes, not from joy, but from fear. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, but every step I took screamed that I didn't belong there. Deep down, I wanted to run, but I didn't. I walked forward. I said I do and sealed the vow I didn't want to make, just to ease my parents' fears. Months later, we were living in an upstairs flat in my parents' house. I was 3 months pregnant when we got into a heated argument. He grabbed me by the hair, dragged me down the stairs, and threw me on the ground. Then he climbed on top of me and he beat me viciously, relentlessly. I begged him to stop. He finally did. He grabbed his car keys, slammed the door, and drove off, leaving me there, battered, bleeding, and I was afraid I was going to lose my baby. I lay on the floor with two black eyes, my face swollen and bruised in every shade you can imagine. My lips were split and bleeding, my entire body trembling. I was terrified, not only for myself, but for the life that was growing inside me. As I lay there, struggling to keep my swollen eyes open, I looked up in the ceiling, and there it was, the image of the same cloud I had seen when I was just 3 years old, flying above the sky. That familiar, comforting shape, the one I thought was the face of God. In that moment of vulnerability, I shouted through my sobs, God, please help me. Help me, God. I dragged my aching body to a nearby chair, clutching my stomach, praying with everything in me that my baby was okay. Later that evening, my parents arrived home. My 7-year-old sister, Sylvia, came upstairs to check up on me. The moment she saw my face, she froze in fear and let out a scream. She ran down the stairs quickly, sobbing, shouting for my parents. When they came up and saw me, they were horrified. My father turned ghostly white. My mother collapsed into tears, screaming, My daughter, what has he done to you? It took everything in us to hold my father back. He was determined to find him, to make him pay what he did to his daughter. We called the police that evening and reported the assault. Officers escorted me to the hospital to make sure the baby and I were okay. Thank God my baby was unharmed. But in the 1970s, domestic violence wasn't treated with the gravity it deserved. The police told me to go to court and file a complaint, but I didn't. I was terrified, afraid of what he'd do if he found out. I was still hiding my truth, still brushing the pain under the rug, still haunted by that familiar phrase, what will people think? One night, we were driving home from a party in Niagara Falls when we were rear ended. An officer arrived and advised us not to drive the car back to Toronto. It wasn't safe. The moment the officer left, my husband insisted we get back into the car and drive home. I said, no way. I refused to get into the car with my child, my 1-year-old son. I'm not putting my life or my 1-year-old son's life in danger. I stood there and I stood my ground. He threatened, get in the car or I'm leaving you. I thought he was only bluffing. Guess what? He did leave. He got in the car and drove off, leaving me alone in a dark rural road in the middle of nowhere, a farmland with no streetlights, no traffic, and a baby in my arms. Terrified, my heart pounding and holding a crying baby in my arms, I scanned the area and saw a small farmhouse in the distance with a light on. I gathered what courage I had left in me and began walking up the long, dark gravel path in front door. I knocked. An older couple opened the door with concern on their face. Are you okay? They asked. They let me in to use their phone. I called my parents, who were still at the party. They came right away and brought us safely home. But on the drive home, all I could hear was my father's repeating his go-to phrase, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him. My mother, equally furious, kept asking, how could he do this to you and to his child? When we reached home, I begged my father to stay in the car. I could see the rage building in his eyes, and I feared what might happen if he went inside with me. Thankfully, my parents respected my wishes and simply dropped me off at the front door. When I stepped into the house, there he was with a furious look on his face and waiting for me with a belt in his hand and a fury etched across his face. I rushed upstairs to take my son to bed, but before I could make it to the bathroom to lock the door, he grabbed me. Well, what happened next is what you're probably already imagining. Years passed. I kept the abuse hidden from everyone, my family, my friends, my coworkers. I was ashamed. I wore long sleeve sweaters in the middle of summer to cover the bruises on my arms. I hid my
Is
swollen
Tina?
face under, and if the marks were still visible,
Hi, Tina.
I invented some. I
Hi,
tripped
Tina.
on the cupboard. I fell. I became an expert at pretending living a happy life was I was really good at it.
Hello,
I
Tina.
yes,
Yeah. Sorry for the interrupt. Our time is running out.
What? Time is running out. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Uh,
thank you.
that was an inspiring presentation, Tina.
Yes, what's she saying?
It's a great journey.
Time is done.
Yeah.
The
We
time
have
is done?
yeah. We have a few questions from our audience. I would like to ask one.
I can't hear her. Okay.
Yeah. How do you protect your peace today? Hello, Tina.
Pardon?
How do you protect your peace today?
Yes, I am.
Yes, Tina, my question is, how do you protect your peace
How
today?
my faith? I'm sorry, I can't understand what you're saying.
Yes, Tina, thank you for your valuable time. Could you please join in the next session?
Yes, dear.